On May 26, 1957, 16-year-old prostitute Betty McCricket gave birth to Mary Bell in Northumberland, England. Her first words to doctors upon looking down at the child she had just created was, "Take that thing away from me." It was anger and rejection that would come to define the young girl's life and set her on a path that only few could imagine. As by only age 11, Mary Bell was a serial killer. If you enjoy true crime videos, please click subscribe below, and don't forget to click the notification bell as well to be alerted every time I upload a new video. After initially rejecting her daughter at birth, Betty did little to attempt to make it up to her and make her feel wanted. Mary seemed to be nothing but a hindrance to the teenage mother, and on one occasion Betty's sister witnessed her trying to give Mary away to a woman trying to adopt. When giving her away didn't work, Betty tried other methods of freeing herself from the clutches of motherhood. First, Mary overdosed on sleeping pills, nearly dying. A witness had seen Betty earlier that day feeding Mary pills as sweets. Later, Mary had a suspicious fall from a window where it's reported she may have suffered brain damage to her prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain associated with voluntary movements and decision-making. Mary would later claim her mother's physical and mental abuse extended all the way to prostituting her out when she was just 4 years old. Around this time, young Mary also witnessed her 5-year-old friend hit and killed by a bus. It's no wonder all this violence and dysfunction produced a child described as strange, withdrawn, and manipulative, always on the edge of violence. She would soon act on those impulses, and the victim would become the abuser. On May 11, 1968, a 10-year-old Mary was playing with a 3-year-old boy when he, too, had a suspicious fall like Mary once had, falling from the top of an air raid shelter and badly injuring himself. The boy's mother thought it was an accident, but suspicion soon arose the following day when 3 women informed police Mary had attempted to choke their young daughters. Mary was interviewed and lectured, but no charges were filed against the 10-year-olds. Exactly 2 weeks later, on May 25th, Mary Bell committed her first murder on the day before her 11th birthday, strangling a 4-year-old named Martin Brown to death inside of an abandoned house in Scotswood. Mary left and came back to the scene with her friend, 13-year-old Norma Bell, no relation, to find 2 boys had stumbled upon the body. Police investigators were stumped. There was no obvious signs of violence on Martin other than a bit of blood and some saliva on his face. They decided to rule his death an accident, assuming he had overdosed on painkillers, as an empty bottle was on the floor near his dead body. Mary showed up to Martin's house a couple days later, asking his mother to see him. The woman tried to explain to Mary that Martin couldn't come out because he was now dead. Mary said she knew. She wanted to see his body in the coffin. Not long afterwards, a local nursery school began experiencing numerous break-ins. After one of the break-ins, it was found to be vandalized with notes taking responsibility for Martin's death. Though assumed to be a prank, it did prompt the school to install an alarm system. Several nights later, the alarm system went off and police rushed to the scene, finding Mary and Norma Bell outside it. But the young children were simply loitering when police arrived, so again there are no repercussions. Mary had a reputation as a show-off and a liar, so when she began telling the other school kids she had killed Martin Brown, nobody took her seriously. Then, another young boy turned up dead. On July 31st, Mary and Norma Bell killed 3-year-old Brian Howe, again by strangulation. After using scissors to scratch his thighs and butcher his penis, the 2 friends joined the search of the neighborhood and his sister to help find him, as he was only known to be missing at the time. When he was finally found, the coroner's report indicated the letter M had been scratched onto his chest with a razor blade. The report also made note of another bone-chilling fact. The lack of force used in the attack suggested the killer might be a child. 11-year-old Mary was seen outside his home on the day of his burial, laughing and rubbing her hands together when she saw Brian's coffin. It didn't take too much longer for the walls to begin to close in around Mary and Norma, who acted strangely in their interviews with police. Mary made up a story about having seen an 8-year-old boy hit Brian on the day he died, but police knew Mary had in fact been seen with him earlier that day. It was Mary's story about the 8-year-old that did her in, as she made mention that the boy she saw had been carrying broken scissors. The mutilation by scissors had been kept from the public. Only police and Brian's killer knew of them. Mary and Norma both broke down and accused the other of being the killer. In Mary's trial, she was described as, quote, evil born, having committed the murder solely for pleasure. Even still, she received only a manslaughter charge, not murder, due to court psychiatrists convincing the jury that Mary could not be held fully responsible because she showed classic signs of psychopathy. Norma Bell was acquitted, said to be an unwilling accomplice falling under Mary's influence. Determined to be a threat to other children, Mary was imprisoned, but it was at Her Majesty's pleasure, a British legal term that essentially means there is no set sentence and you will be allowed out when the powers that be feel like it's appropriate. The case received a ton of press in the country. Ever the ideal parent, Mary's mother frequently sold stories about her daughter to them and gave reporters writings she claimed were from her daughter in prison. Incredibly, Mary served only 12 years and was released in 1980 at 23 years old. She was granted anonymity and given a new name to allow her to start a new life. She had a daughter on May 25th of 1984, and Bell's daughter was also granted anonymity for life through a court order that was later updated to include Mary Bell's granddaughter, referred to only as Z. Till this day, Mary Bell, her daughter, and her granddaughter's identity and whereabouts are unknown. They are out there somewhere. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening, and please consider checking out some of the many other true crime videos on my channel. Please don't forget to both subscribe and click the notification bell so that you can be notified every time I upload a new video. I'm Jason Hebert, and I'll see you next time.